Hey, how are you?
Hey, what's up? All good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, all good. Are you going to GraphQL Conf?
yeah. Planning on it. Yep.
Very cool. You s-
You doing?
you saw the new date, right?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Nice. I won't be there. I'll be at Kotlin Conf at the same time. Actually, I'll be riding my bike to Kotlin Conf. Hey Benji,
Hey folks.
I think we are full because Mark just added himself to the agenda, but he said he'll be joining 30 minutes late.
I'm good with taking the 30-minute recess.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I'm good with taking a 30-minute recess.
Do you wait? Did you want to come back in 30 minutes?
It's up to you guys. Did Mark say that he had something in particular, or is he just coming to help?
I think he's just coming to help. He didn't add anything to the agenda.
Well, I wouldn't mind having 30 minutes now to just spend looking through Rob's
Uh, uh,
previous month's pull request.
Unpack GraphQL day. Okay, sounds good to me. Let's regroup in 27 minutes.
Yeah. So I'll put the link into the chat. PR 1203. Same one that we did last month. Uh, Benji, you reviewed it last time. You had some suggestions, especially on the naming. I addressed all of your comments, I think. So, if you want to take some time and have another look at it, and I'll be here. I'll turn my camera up. I'll be here listening if you have questions or anything, and then we can regroup and whatever.
Yeah, sounds
Yes.
good. See you in 25 minutes.
All right, great.
Mark, we were all counting on you to have 30 minutes of quiet time in the middle of GraphQL day.
Wait, say again?
So we all came in at well 6 minutes ago, and since you mentioned you were going to be 30 minutes late, we were like, "This is great! We have 30 minutes where we can go off camera and actually do the pull request reviews and take some time to
Oh
dig
no.
into stuff."
Oh
We,
no, I
we,
hope I wasn't holding up the proceedings.
so we're reviewing the PR from Rob right now.
Okay.
Yeah, just hoping to make some progress on review for incremental delivery. So uh, if you would like, please review, leave some comments. Feel free to ask any questions and I'll answer them.
I think what Rob recommended last time, by the way, is that you review Appendix E as the last thing. It's the first file in the pull request, but it's the last bit to read, I think.
Yeah, the main goal is to get the changes to the response section approved since everything builds on that. I have some examples here, and we can keep building on that as we go through it, but definitely the important part is the response section. So the plan was to review this now and regroup in 22 minutes.
Got it.
How are we looking?
I am still going through it, but it is looking good. I think the new words that we have are much more obvious. It is much easier to read now, I think. Um, I've gone through the entirety of the appendix. There's a couple of little minor typos, and a few other little like grammatical things that we can improve. But broadly, I'm really happy with it. The main entry point is fine. It's just a tiny tweak for the appendix, and section 3 is fine as well, just small tweaks for the wording. I'm partway through doing section 7, so maybe another 5 or 6 minutes for me. If we're feel free to get on with other stuff. Like maybe Martin wants to run issue club whilst I keep reading.
I don't know. Let's take things in sequence, I think, so we can keep the focus and we don't do back and forth. If it's 5 minutes, we can wait. I mean, even 10.
All right, let's regroup at 10 after.
That's good.
When it says there must not be any other ID for pending results in the map, what is it defined what happens if that happens? Is it defined how the error bubbles up or blows up?
Can you repeat that? What line are you referring to?
It is line. I've just lost it now. Hang on.
I think it's is it 424 on in the response file.
It's no, it's in types. Yeah, it's not. Line 424 in response.md. The ID value must be unique for the entire incremental stream response. There must not be any other pending result in the incremental stream that contains the same ID.
I don't think there's no defining what would happen, but if a server was doing that, it would be non-spec compliant. I think that's what I was intending. The same way, like, I don't know, we don't
Okay.
define what happens if you had, I don't know.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah, it's like a must not type statement thing. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and these aren't user defined IDs. So yeah, totally fair
right.
enough.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit over 10 minutes now.
Okay, I'm still not through, but I have submitted my comments. If it's cool, I'll just go through them real quickly with you, Rob, if that's cool.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. So the first one is I'm pretty sure it's just a typo. You put error. I think you meant errors because it's data and errors, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
So that's trivial. The next one is we use the term completed result, but I'm a little bit concerned that that is confusing because the term result is used in a number of places, and completed result isn't necessarily directly related to incremental. I think if we just call it an incremental completion result, we get around that issue, and it feels much more part of the incremental like family of terms. Um, but it's just a minor wording issue. Um, with the next one, we've said if the iterator did close synchronously, hasNext would set it to false. That sounds normative. It basically says if it almost says if your iterator closes synchronously, you must set hasNext to false. And we don't really care, right? We don't mind it one way or the other. We're just saying that it can do that. So I've just changed the word from would to could, and adjusted the wording slightly around that. Um, from a consumer perspective, you can't observe whether that's the case or not, so it doesn't really matter. But again, it's just I don't want people like waving the spec at back-end implementers and saying, I closed my iterator synchronously, and the spec says that that means you must do this. When in this case, it doesn't really matter.
okay.
Again, it's incredibly minor. Um, the next one is just like reordering the sentence just so it reads a little bit nicer. That's just opinion. Like, take what you will. The next one again is just addressing like a little bit of grammatical ambiguity. So that's very minor. The one after that is more interesting. So I've forgotten that we do this, but essentially when you have two overlapping deferred things and one of them completes before the other, you have like a little shared payload that gets put in first, right?
Yep.
And it looks like to me that we're using essentially just one of those IDs as the ID for that shared payload. Um, and we could technically have used either of those IDs, I guess. We'd use whichever one it is that we're delivering with it. Is that right?
Um,
So like this
yes.
one could have just ID one and it would have the same meaning.
Yeah.
So that is odd, right? It's unexpected. And I think that it would be good to add some like non-normative note there, like calling out that slight bit of strangeness. In particular, I think that there's a risk that people who don't build like a standard relay style normalized tree or something like that out of this, they might just take the base data and then want to put all of the ID zeros together to form one fragment and all the ID ones together to form the other fragment. And that won't work because you need the ID zero result to form the ID one result at the end of the day. So either we need to change that, which I'm not proposing, or we just need a little bit of thing there to note there is subtlety here. Pay attention to it. This is a potential. Oh, this is a little bit weird. Pay attention.
Okay. Makes
For
sense.
the next bit, you've sort of listed the keys over multiple paragraphs for the incremental stream result, and actually, I hold less to this the more that I worked through the text. Nonetheless, I feel like it would be nice to essentially lay out the list of keys up front and then talk about the values of them afterwards. Um, just because it helps you to think in terms of like what is this object that I'm dealing with? It's an object with data, has next, and possibly errors pending, incremental, completed, and extensions. Okay, what are the keys of those? Delivering them all like in dribs and drabs means that there was no like concrete list of all of the different fields that you can get on it, which I just felt might be a little bit more complicated for an implementer, especially someone who's validating like the types in their library. So I've just moved things around a little bit. This would need additional edits if we had adopted this. It's not required. It's just personal preference. Like it's just my opinion. Similarly, we discussed this at last month's meeting about why you are allowing both incremental, no, both incremental and completed on the initial stream result, because again, that's non-obvious because you should just like be delivering the data up front. You gave the example of like a middleware somewhere that's caching emerging streaming results, and that makes complete sense. So I think adding a note to say that in most cases you don't need this, but we allow it for flexibility or something like that, I think would be just beneficial for the spec reader because they might do the same as I did and read this and go, why would you need that? Like, why does this
Yeah.
exist? So it's just to help readers. And then finally, for the pending key, it's actually required if has next is true and it is forbidden if has next is false,
Right.
right? So let's reflect that in the text.
Is it required if has next, wait, for only for the initial,
In the initial incremental stream result, you
yeah,
will only ever have next if there is pending. I suppose
right,
that's not true, is it? Because of the way that you've defined things, you could have has next true and then just a second payload after that with just has next false. But it would be really weird to do that without having a pending.
right. There could also be pending and incremental and completed, and the whole thing is finished in one payload. So has next would
Yes.
be false.
Okay. So maybe we limit this down to just the restriction that pending must be present for has next to be true.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I'll edit my comment to note the what you just said. Okay, done. Um, as I say, I'm still not all the way through this, but I think we are pretty close now. This is all just, as you can see, it's just quibbles, right? It's just minor tweaks.
Okay. I think I could get these changes in within the next 24 hours. Um, if I kick it back to you, then do you think you would have time to finish the review and maybe we could move on to the next bit for next month or it
Um,
understood if you don't and
I would like to say yes. I have a very busy week ahead of me, but maybe Thursday I'll be able to have another look at it.
okay, sounds good.
And in other words, no rush. Don't rush to do it in 24 hours. Just by Thursday's fine.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah. Thank you very much. This is good feedback. Mark or Martin, did you guys have any feedback?
my brain is still very confused that a response stream is itself a response. But I think we've had this discussion already, so I don't want to change that again.
Okay.
Like it's a circular definition, right? It's a response is a response stream. So how do you build a response if you like it feels still a bit weird, but yeah, I'm done with it. We need to move this forward, and it's implemented in most of Apollo products, I would say. So it would be good to have it in the spec.
Well, the response stream is still like that's part of the spec as of today, right? That's what
Yeah,
we
that's
do
defined
for
for subscriptions.
subscriptions. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, pretty sure it
So
is.
the new wording is incremental stream. This is the new thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the more accurate thing to rename a response stream to, like just going completely off topic for a moment, would be
Mhm.
an execution result stream. Because it's
Yes.
a stream of execution results, and we actually have a word for that now. So
Yes.
yeah, I would support that kind of editorial edit, but this will be the second renaming of those things that we've done. So yeah, make sure you really back it
Yeah.
if you want to push that through.
No. I just want this thing to be merged and yeah, and be able to do other things. Oh, what are we missing, by the way? So once this gets merged, it goes into the integration branch. And
Yeah,
then when do we merge the integration branch? Like, what's the criteria there?
there's still a lot to go.
No.
Yeah. So the next batch that I would do would be the validation rules. A handful of new validation rules that we're adding. That I think shouldn't be too controversial. Then there is the execution algorithm, which is pretty dense. Um, so probably we'll break that up into one or more group of functions at a time to get through the whole thing.
Is
I
there
see.
I know we've already done some work in this regard, like we've already factored some of the incremental changes into the specs execution algorithm as it currently stands, right? With like the execution of collected fields and stuff like that. Is there anything else like that that we can do that we can pull some of this work ahead of time and just get it merged into the spec core that's just like base refactoring work?
I don't think so. Um,
Yeah, that's fair. I
yeah.
didn't think so either. I thought we've kind of
Mhm.
already done that. I was just hoping.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, from my point of view, I think that this first bit is honestly one of the more complex bits of not complex, sorry, it's one of the more challenging bits because you need to get like all the words right. You need to make it make sense. And these are the terms we're going to be going forward with. But I think validation rules, that's just code at the end of the day, almost, right? So I think, as you say, that'll be much less controversial. It will just be a case of making sure it is valid, and it covers all the cases.
Yeah, hope so.
Do we have a website that summarizes all the software that's compatible with Differ and Stream today?
Um, no, I don't think so.
I can see
Uh,
that helping adoption, right? You make it doesn't have to be fancy. Make a markdown table, link to the project language, what version of Differ does it support, what version of any limitation there is, stuff like this. Like Differ tracker.
yeah, maybe I should put that for now into the main big full PR, like just into the description there. And as we get closer, then we'll have Could put it in a blog post or something.
On the verge of buying, can I use defer.org?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Can I use .graphql.org? All right. I've been not sniped. I'm opening an issue. We can discuss it next month.
I like the idea
Okay.
of that as well for the point of view of like golden path as well. Can I use this part of the golden path? Can I, etc. Yeah, I think having a resource like this would be really valuable. We already essentially have like a library of clients and such, so I'm sure there's some crossover there in terms of like front matter metadata style thing for you for generating such a table. Um, yeah, fun. Good project, Martin.
Another one. I said no new project. Let's finish the other existing ones. But we have grants. We can get people to work on this. All right, let's move on. Mark, is there anything you wanted to discuss in particular, or should we move into issue club? Your meeting.
That's yeah, no, issue club is fine. If there's time at the end, I have like a small thing I was going to discuss with you, but yeah, we can continue with the agenda.
Yeah,
of this.
issue club can take as long as we want, which is why I'm asking, and I'm always putting it at the end because we have 147 issues, 157 issues to go through, so it can last for hours. So if you have something you want to discuss, it's better to discuss it now.
Well, the two things I was gonna like maybe bring up, one was like a really quick item, talking more about like grant program things. Since you just mentioned it, it seems like a good segue. So I think that would be a good one. I think documentation in general. I at the last Golden Path working group meeting with Benji, we talked about schema guidelines as something which I thought should have been in the Golden Path, but then Benji was like, actually, this is just like documentation. So yeah, like fair enough. Because there's like a whole bunch of like, here's how to write a good GraphQL schema, guys, and like do's and don'ts. But we have like very little of that on the actual GraphQL.org page. There's like a couple things on there, and I think there's enough uncontroversial stuff that's worth putting, like officially documenting official best practices. So I have like a GitHub issue where I'm starting to try and collect some of those up on the graphql.github.io repo. I can bring that up actually. And basically, like, I wonder if this would also be a good candidate for grant program if someone wants to spend some time beefing up the GraphQL guidelines, the schema guidelines page. Here it is. Yeah, this issue.
So,
And then that's like a very incomplete list.
first of all, thank you for starting to prepare this. This is fantastic. Like we really valuable to have these kind of things. One of my concerns with something like this is by presenting this stuff, we are essentially marking existing schemas as like not following best practices or not whatever when those things weren't already in place. And I think that is potentially a risk. One of the things with the golden path is like your library should support this functionality, but that doesn't mean you have to use it. The golden path isn't there as like you must follow all of these, otherwise you're doing GraphQL wrong. It's more like these are the default behaviors of GraphQL, but if you know better, you can go somewhere else. So one of the things that I'd like to make sure when we address this, that when we factor these things in, that we make them very clearly opinions, and that like straying from them is perfectly valid. And if you have a good reason
Right.
to stray from it, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And if that wasn't kind of clearly communicated my issue, then I apologize and I should do so. So I think everyone's on the same page there, and I'm very sympathetic to the fact that yeah, you might be using GraphQL in some like let's say weird way. You, uh, I think you brought up the example of whichever static site generator it was that uses
Gatsby,
GraphQL for
probably.
like loading assets. Yeah, Gatsby. Or maybe you're using it in some sort of like embedded system and you have like different constraints or whatever. So yeah, GraphQL itself being very unopinionated, totally good. So then maybe this is sort of I don't use the word implementation detail because it is worth talking about at a high level, but some way of presenting the information, some way of classifying that this applies to like web services or consumer web services, or I don't know, like I'll do some more thinking on that as like ways to bucket the guidance. And certainly I think there'll only be like a handful. I think there will be like 4 guidelines that everyone can agree on, and everything else is to some degree of well, it depends, and well, maybe this is not always true. Maybe you need to kind of use your own judgment, and so kind of handling that in these guidelines as well. Right now, we essentially do well very little in the way of helping folks navigate this, and welcome to the Thunderdome at a lot of places. So I do think it's worth solving upstream in some way. I think that would be broadly helpful. But at the same time, exactly what you just said, making sure that it's not like this is the only way to do it. I think having like an introduce that, like a versioning type thing as well would be helpful. Like maybe each guideline has like a canonical URL and has like a strongly versioned thing, and we can sort of make it a bit more formal rather than just like loose documentation. So that's another direction we could go.
I don't think we should make it too formal. Like, I think it's going to
Okay.
be like best practices like this evolve over time. And I think we should just say this is what our current understanding of what the best way of doing things is.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'll update that ticket to sort of write down the discussion we just had, the hit points there. And yeah, if you're cool with it, then I'll keep adding some stubs for things that I think would be good fits, and then I would vote that would be a good use of my resources to have someone kind of look after that. But yeah, and then I don't know if it needs to go to like a TSC or a working group meeting, but like for every new guideline that we add, is that something that we all want to vote on? Or are we happy with whoever's championing that to just kind of like YOLO, get a random ship it to whoever has permissions in that repo? So the governance around how we add new guidelines should be something we talk about as well.
I think what these are essentially is just documentation on the graphql.org website. And so essentially how that works is you raise a pull request, and if you get enough like positive reviews from, known working group members, you get enough checks, then we merge it. Like that's essentially what happens. You can look back through the history of, for example, Sarah Sanders or Mandy Wise raising pull requests against that, getting approved, or editorial with various TSC members, and then those will get merged. I think this is broadly the same. I think we should discuss it at the primary working group to basically say, here's what's being proposed, and we plan to do this. To give people a chance to like say, no, this is a terrible idea. But honestly, I think everyone's going to be on board. Like this is definitely a thing that is valuable. It's going to be really helpful for GraphQL users. As we know, like decision fatigue is like a real problem, and you don't want to be making these kind of decisions if they don't really have value. And if you can like lay out like this is what you should do by default, I think that takes away a lot of those decisions and means that people can and spend their energy in other areas. But I would like to also to harken back what I was saying before. There are things that seem like they are universally agreed on, like naming conventions in GraphQL, type names in Pascal case, constants in upper snake case, etc., etc. until you realize that even then, like the enums, if you want to represent a GraphQL type name in an enum, then you would like it's much more convenient or natural to do that using the type name itself, like you know, user issue or whatever, capital U, capital I. So even those kind of like seemingly obvious things also have exceptions. Um,
Sure.
I would recommend, whilst you're doing the like thinking about this, that you have a look at how ESLint does its documentation for its various rules. It has quite good patterns of like, here's the rule,
Here's where
here's
you
how you
might not
enable
need
it,
this.
here's how you might not need it. Here's like configuration options for it, like opt it in for this or this amount of it or whatever. And I think that that's also particularly useful because I think a lot of these things that you're going to be proposing through this or that we as a community will be proposing are themselves lintable, right? And we've got things like GraphQL ESLint. So if we
Right.
like help describe the documentation for this, people can make tooling that like enforces it and makes sure that you have that like governance in place. And I think that that's really valuable too.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually like to. I don't want to like boil the ocean here, and for now, just kind of add to that page. But if each rule gets its own slug and stable link, and then that kind of more easily allows you to build either like real linters or like a skill that says go read the GraphQL official schema best practice and lint based on that. Um, then yeah, I agree. Using it as an input to those types of toolings is a really good idea, and designing it to be useful for that.
So
Um,
that's a slightly different proposal.
yeah,
And
I'm
now
saying I'm
now
not
is
well,
the
I'm not doing
time
that right now.
now is the time to figure that out, I think, right? Because once we start adding this stuff to the website, it becomes like the website needs the permalink style maintenance of it. And if we start then having another copy of it somewhere else with slugs, it becomes now you've got two things to maintain. Um,
I
if you
I
want
don't
to
disagree
point
with
to a
you.
schema design handbook, which is like design.graphql.org or schemadesign.graphql.org or something like that, and we want to like set that up as its own project, we can definitely do like that. That is definitely an option. So yeah, have a think about it, decide where you want to take it.
Okay, being mindful of the amount of things that I'm throwing at people at once and I'm working on myself at once. That's why I want to do it iteratively. But yes, I agree with you. It's nicer to start with and not change stable URLs. Okay, let's move on. I can comment on this async. Thanks,
Do you
Benji.
want me to add this to the call for project blog post, Mark?
To the what? Sorry.
The call for project blog post. I'm working
CFP,
on
call for
this
projects.
CFP stuff for grants. Want to
I Yeah, like if someone else wants to pick this up, or if it's something we want to kind of put money towards, like I think it would be a useful thing. So um I guess we'll still end up voting on if it's the worth, but like officially do the
Yeah,
official vote and
this is
stuff.
the
But
part where I'm
yeah,
unsure. Like, if we onboard someone there and there is a contract and the delivery relies on getting TSC approval, I don't want them to be blocked by the
yeah,
government.
maybe we should like pre-approve or something the things that we're putting into the CFP,
Yeah,
because that would be silly if someone says yes, I want to pick that up, and then we go actually no, sorry, that's
actually, yes. Maybe, I mean, we've done this before. I think, Benji, you mentioned Mandy Wise or Sarah Sanders. They have been grant recipients and they have merged best practices and stuff on the repo. But I guess we don't want the process to be too long or something like this. How did we proceed there, Benji?
So yeah, it's always challenging doing this kind of thing. You kind of have a talk up front and make sure that you're aligned. One of the advantages of like Sarah and Mandy, is that they're like known GraphQL
Yeah,
speakers and authors already. So we already know that they know their stuff,
we
and they're
can
not going to
trust
go
them.
they're not going to go too far off the off the path. And so then a lot of it comes down to like I think I forget who did it, but one of them raised a pull request adding like GraphQL uploads. And
Mm,
there was concern on that because, obviously there's a lot of ways of doing GraphQL uploads wrong. Um, I'm personally of the opinion that you shouldn't be uploading files through GraphQL directly. Like you should use REST or like some other system for that. Um, but essentially, like we wanted to make sure that everything was well reflected. So that involved quite a lot more back and forth. But with what Mark's doing here, with like laying out a bunch of like these schema design guides, if we can essentially get a whole bunch of these like basically pre-approved, then the job is essentially like create a website that has this kind of stuff that's a bit like the ESLint thing or like, vague goals that like someone implementing this would like understand and we would know whether they delivered that or not. And then, see what comes out of it. Um, Generally, one concern, right, is essentially that someone just points a large language model at it and you just end up with not an ideal amount of stuff to review. Um, so guidance should be given there, I think, as well. Um, because if you're just going to do that, we could have just pointed the language model at it ourselves. But yeah, it's all in the specking and the scoping. And part of the grant application is normally laying out what it is that you are proposing you will do anyway. Um, But with what you're proposing with the call for projects, it's kind of the other way around. You're saying, here's the spec, who wants to
yes.
implement it? So then it just comes down to how well can we write that spec? And I
Mm-mm.
think one concern there is obviously if we write the spec well enough, we've pretty much written the schema design guides at that point, you know.
Yeah, so we've done the work and someone else gets the money.
So yeah, finding the right balance for that is definitely challenging. So
I think we
I'm
should
not sure
still
this has
include
been
it.
helpful.
Worst case, we don't get anyone to do it, but it's a good opportunity for us to think about it and maybe have some people manifest interest into it. And if we can do it part of a grant, then it's good. If not, we'll find other ways. Like it's
Okay,
not
there's
binding blog post.
Yeah, I think that's
Uh,
reasonable. There's also a completely alternative take on this, right? Which is that you don't do it with a grant, you do it with like two grants.
yeah,
Grant one is to go out and gather all of these different schema design things and work with the community to figure out which ones of these float to the top. And I think most people, most of us like who do GraphQL all the time, will be able to basically read the titles for a lot of these and be like, yeah, that's a thing that's important, and upvote it or whatever. And then you just have them implement like, the top 10, 15 upvoted ones as a second grant where it's actually more the implementation.
Yeah, and I agree with kind of
good.
what Martin just said there, that if we heavily spec out here's what it should look like, then we've essentially done the work, which is, I don't know, a little bit what I did with the first two that I added there. But to whoever does pick this up, me or someone else, then the work is not to come up with the best practices or limp rules from first principles, because most of this stuff, like if there's not already someone talking about this in some blog post or some of like company best practices thing, then it's probably not something that should be included anyway. And so yeah, a lot of this is just sort of like gathering and reformulating existing guidance into a consistent format. Um, yeah.
Let's try to merge a few, not to merge, but to look at a few issues before we all go back to our day. Unless we have anything else to discuss on this. Good.
Did you have a second topic, Mark? I feel like you said there was
Oh
two
yeah,
things.
you had a second topic.
Um, yeah, I'm wondering whether or not it's. think maybe this is just like an async topic, but like I'm very interested
Go
in
for it.
in Argo slash Seaboard slash some more efficient way of encoding responses in GraphQL. And I know this has been talked about to death a million times. But I did see at this year's GraphQL Conf, someone's talking about Argo. I looked into it. It does seem really good. And so I guess at the back of my mind, I'm curious if there is like some pathway to making that more of a thing that we do as a community and making it more official in some capacity. It's sort of like a very unstructured thought, but the bar of like, is it experimental? Is anyone using it? Is, I think, being chipped away at. Something I want to play around at Yelp as well. And I'm particularly interested in this because we're doing more service to service. And so the trade-offs are different, where your bottleneck is less the bandwidth and more the serialization and deserialization time. And so it becomes like very leveraged to be able to do something like that at that layer versus web and mobile, where yes, you care about serialization time as well, but you also care about like, bite size over the wire. And then of course you get into the thing of like, well, different languages care about it differently because like in Node.js, like JSON.stringify is like really, really hard to beat. It's even quicker than protobufs versus other compiled languages. So there's like, there's like a whole bunch of like trade-offs. It depends what language you're using. It depends where you're using GraphQL. But the idea of being able to conditionally, with an accepts header, say, I want this response or I want this response. And then also being able to, apply Brotley or Z, well, forget the name of the compression algorithm. But anyway, my point, my very long and dithering point here being, we have a GraphQL over HTTP spec, and I'm wondering if at some point it makes sense to sort of start mentioning these other delivery encoding mechanisms and kind of what the pathway there looks like. So yeah, I don't know.
So it sounds like you should take this to the GraphQL over HTTP working group, which hasn't actually met for quite a while, but by all means submit an item there and come talk about it there. I personally think that it is a very interesting topic. I've probably been one of the more involved people in the actual issue discussion around this, and mostly from the point of view of like in many cases, this doesn't make enough of an impact on serialization size to make a difference. I haven't tried it with Argo, so like that might be different. But it is important, as you say, to keep in mind what you're actually targeting here. And it might be that it's not size that's actually the important thing. It can be serialization, deserialization time, as you say. And that is something where, like, if you can give measurable results and say this is, 15% faster for the vast majority of requests, and you've got data for that, that's really compelling. And if we can get compelling data for that is across languages as well, because of course implementing this kind of thing is challenging, then this is something that we really could like push forwards, and we could make it part of like the golden path if it's going to save people like 10% bandwidth and 15% execution time by just trimming the edges off or whatever. Like, that's fantastic. That's good news for everyone.
Yeah. Basically, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, making it part of the golden path, making it part of the official, like, this is the way you do GraphQL and do like byte formats, because a lot of people are futzing around with SDL to protobuf and also protobuf to SDL. Like, people are doing it both ways, and they like both have issues. it's really good if you can make it work, but you need like a large infra team to make it work, and also you need that infra team to kind of smooth over all the rough edges that happen as a result of that translation. And having like a first class supported GraphQL byte serialization format that we like support would save a lot of people doing a lot of that repeated work and kind of give you the best of all worlds. And I've been doing a lot of this benchmarking. Shout out to Claude, who's been helping me with all that. But yeah, especially if you're using a language like Python, where JSON serialization is incredibly inefficient. I mean, yes, you can swap out for like Rust FFI things, but yeah, there's like a massive, massive opportunity here. And I think now the timing is right to kind of start talking about this again in a more serious way. So I'll this is very relevant to what I'm doing in my actual like make money day job. So I will definitely seek to have this conversation at the over HTTP working group, Benji.
Sounds
Do you
good.
know Mike Solomon, who did that
Yeah,
GraphQL
I've
Confidence?
watched. Yeah, I watched that talk. I'm also very excited for the WhatsApp talk as well at this year's conf. It honestly seems like Argo gives you the best of both worlds. It seems like there's already a format out there that does kind of what we want. For Apollo, it's interesting because it does mean that if you're doing it on like clients, on public clients, you need to ship down like you need trusted documents basically. And so I think this is where the having an accept header comes into play, because if you're using untrusted documents or in dev or something, you would like downgrade to just using JSON, I guess. But if you are using trusted documents and maybe this is implemented in like a link, then you can get this capability. So yeah, I watched that talk. I'm very excited for the WhatsApp thing. They have an implementation. There's an implementation in Go as well. So there's I don't know. There's like a lot of life here that's teetering along, but it's not very visible to a lot of folks. And so, yeah, that's why I'm running. It's an opportunity for
My
us.
point is, we have people who seem very tech savvy, who know about the problem.
Yeah.
Can we use grants to have those people contribute existing projects?
That's exactly what I suggested in that discussion that you said. Yeah, I'd love it if we could get those folks involved. Like, there's already a solution for this, and so we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. Maybe we can just kind of like bless Argo as like the thing to do. Like, it's already pretty well designed to do what we want. So yeah, I think we should try and. I mean, the Argo spec is written by someone else, and so like the legal and the governance of it all is like very tricky, and maybe it's just something that's like we suggest using this, but it's not really like an official GraphQL thing, so that kind of gets a bit weird. Also, the Argo spec itself is like very out of date. So I assume they're using like some newer unpublished version of the spec. So there's a lot of rough edges here, but yeah, I would love to get the people that know about Argo more involved in this and maybe targeting, maybe like reaching out to them directly through the grants program. Maybe that's a good avenue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll have very good results if we reach out to those people. Like if someone from the TSC reaches out and said, "Hey, we have this problem," it really recognizes the expert value they have, and I think they are very likely to accept. I don't know, like it's just a guess, but I think it's something that could
Yeah.
work.
Like, hey, this thing that you're doing already, basically, do you want some money to do the
Yeah,
thing that
exactly.
you're
Yeah,
already doing? Yeah.
just a small nudge.
There's a few things that when you bring this to the HTTP working group, you should think about. One of them is like debuggability, right? Like if people are looking at GraphQL, sorry, in the like browser console, it's very easy to like just look at the JSON, like the browser formats it for you and stuff. With a binary serialization, you do lose out on a lot of that, so there is a trade-off. Another thing is I think that you want to make it so that everyone should support JSON still. And that Argo is effectively like an optimization that you can use for some
Yep.
requests, and that a client should expect to be given either JSON or Argo, even if they request Argo, even if the server supports Argo. it might still use JSON for some responses. And that might be important for like if there's a middle caching layer. It might be important for something like incremental delivery, where maybe Argo doesn't yet support the parts that we need in that. So there's a number of things there that we should keep in mind. But yeah, like I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think all that's taken care of by like an accept setter and just follow regular semantics around that. But yeah, and like calling out, you should probably be mindful to not send that in a graphical response, because in graphical you are trying to achieve that debuggability. So you should probably, yeah, graphical
Right.
should
My
not
my
use,
point is
should not include it
more
in accepts.
like yeah, graphical would just say accept only the JSON, so that's fine. It's more that we should always say that servers should support JSON as one of the accepted media types. And Argo can be an additional option. Um, if you're proposing that Argo be like a GraphQL over HTTP compliant server, can be Argo only, that is a much stronger and harder
No,
proposal.
yeah, I'm not saying Argo only. I'm saying that the GraphQL spec does not define a serialization format. Cool. Yeah, having some way of tying the ecosystem together around like using Argo in the over HTTP spec feels like the right place to do this, even though I guess you could do this not over HTTP as well. So that's kind of a bit weird. Maybe you're using Argo over raw telnet or something. I don't know. But yes, I'm not seeking to say that Argo should be the only way, because it really does matter where you are in the stack. If you're using graphical, what language you're using. So yeah, I'm not seeking to make this a must use Argo thing. It's like a very much a, if the server supports it and you include it in your accept, then you may get that response. Yeah.
Yep, sounds good. Just make sure you're real clear on all those points, and I think we'll be a winning proposal.
Awesome.
Before we close that call, I just pasted 3 links in the chat. First issue is a schema coordinate issue on GraphQL spec. Should we close it?
Yeah, I can close that right now. We've done it. Good job, everyone. Close issue.
And the 2 other ones are CCN stuff, client control nullability issues open a while ago about CCN, which is not the way we are trying to fix this. So I'm suggesting we close those as well. Any objection?
Let's close the client control nullability operator 867. Actually, we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that here without a broader agreement. But I think we should propose it essentially like generally like when we're closing this would have the effect of making it RFC-X, which is a rejected proposal. And we have process around this. So we should state that we are planning to do this and give people a chance to say, no, don't do that, would be my proposal. But we essentially already have it. So either Alex Riley says, yeah, I mean, he basically has already. So ping Alex, and if Alex agrees, then you can add the RFC. There's RFCX and there's RFCS now, which is like superseded. Um, so you could say it's superseded by the on error proposal. No, RFCX, this would become X rejected. I would have Alex himself agree to it. And if he does, then yes, make it RFCX and close it.
Why not RFCS?
I would, yeah. I mean, I introduced that not too long ago, mostly to show things that replaced another. So, like, directly replaced another, right? So, like, one of replaced one field, which replaced the
Okay.
tagged these were all implementations of essentially the same thing. Whereas the client-controlled nullability operator, we're not then replacing that with another client-controlled nullability operator. In fact, we're not doing any form of client-controlled nullability at all. What we're doing is turning off error propagation, and that's a completely like different thing. So I'd say it's not exactly superseded. It's much more like we decided this was the wrong path. We've gone back, and now we've gone forward down a different path.
Sounds good. All right.
But for the other one, which was the disable error propagation,
Yep.
um, I think that that is still fine to be open for now. Like people can still use it in the interim until we have on error. Um, I think this would actually really be a gap in if gaps had existed at this time, and it would still be open
Mm-mm.
as a gap. So I don't think it warrants closing. That's my opinion. But like, I don't mind. If Alex wants to close it, then so be it.
Yeah, and this has no RFC tag attached, so it's just a GraphQL spec pull request.
Yeah, so it probably should have had an RFC tag attached. Um, yeah, no, this has spec edits and stuff. This should have always had an RFC. I'm going to give it an RFC 0,
Okay.
but we'll probably change it to. I think Alex will probably vote in terms of closing it, in which case it'll become RFCX as well.
Sounds good. I'm adding the same and here.
Mark, to answer your question, what is the status of gaps? The status is I am talking with Jory literally tomorrow to figure out what needs to happen there.
Cool. And just to clarify, the licensing on it, I have an issue on the Gaps repo. It's just going to fall under. I was unclear because I know like the CLA applies to like if you can merge stuff, but the um the actual license that individual gaps live under, is that worth clarifying?
Okay, I'll add that to my
As some
list.
prior as some prior arts. Here's like another project, and here's like their RFCs type contributing guidelines, and they explicitly say that all of their RFCs are under Apache 2.
So I think the answer to this is going to be it will end up under the same license as the GraphQL specification itself, which is not the MIT license because the MIT license applies to code, not specifications. So it'd be the OWFA one or whatever the hell it's called. Um, if I'm not just talking absolute rubbish. Um,
Okay, yeah, I'd like to kind of maybe clarify
Yeah,
that
the
in the
Open
README.
Web Foundation Agreement 1.0 is what the GraphQL spec is under. I strongly suspect that it will be the same license as that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's worth clarifying in the README, main README then as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Thanks.
We adjourn. I have to go in 2 seconds.
Just a moment. Mark, do you think there's any reason why the OWF wouldn't be ideal for this? Like, is there no, you just wanted the answer. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't have opinions on the legalese of it. Just knowing which license it is, especially because if I'm doing it on behalf of my company, or whatever, and like my company's lawyers want to know, then being able
Mhm.
to point them to something.
Yeah, I think it just being on under the same spec as under the same license as everything else would make a lot of sense. So that's probably what we'll do. I'll be talking to Jory tomorrow to figure out exactly what we need to do in terms of governance docs, and I strongly suspect that adding a license in this way will be part of that. And then every like sub spec, as it were, will essentially be governed by the same license. Each gap. Cool. All right, folks. Thanks for the chat. Lots of progress. Catch you in the next one.
See you.